the manpower shortage is being solved by training women to do almost the entire job. Waitresses, sales girls, housewives, all have willingly taken their places in national defense. But can these women satisfy America's critical need for skilled labor in industry? Are they fulfilling the demands of wartime production? Well, let's find out.
How about after the war? Are you going to keep on working?
I should say not. When my husband comes back, I'm going to be busy at home.
Good for you.
Some of them were forced to leave when the men came back to work. Because they were there, quote unquote, to fill the man's job while he went to war. And it was literally told to them that they had to leave. So some fought, stood their grounds, and stayed, but a lot of them left. They actually got in fights to where, they had to fight for their right to stay. They would tell the foreman, I'm the only one left. Yeah, I had a husband when I came here, but he didn't come back. So now I need a job. And it was because of that that a lot of the women were allowed to stay, or did stay. It wasn't it was like they paid their price. But they also were treated in a way that was kind of nasty.
Did you ever try pleasing a bunch of women shoppers all day?
No, I never did.
Well, here I just have to please the boss, and he's a man.
I had foreman come up and go, I'm going to fire you. I went, good luck. Because back then you only needed 30 days to be in the union. And once you got past your 30 days, it was harder to fire you. My uncle had been involved in the steel mill for a long time, so I knew they really had to fight to fire me then. There were so many different people that would help out, that showed me that, the union did matter. The union could help out. And that's when I started realizing that I could get involved in the union a little bit more. I would go to a union meeting here and there, and it wouldn't be too bad.
And I first met Sharon and the other steelworkers when I started teaching classes at the career development at Sparrows Point. And my classes were union training classes in grievance and arbitration and contract bargaining, things like that. And so students like Sharon came to the class, and Sharon was one of the best. I knew her years ago as a smart and determined union woman, and particularly the women who had come in early in the 70s, when women really started coming in the mill, had a very, very tough go. And so they were really strong.
And I went back as a steel pouring crane operator.
They do a man's job, and they can draw a man's pay. And they're doing it safely. They're safer here than in their own homes.
That was probably the third time I was almost killed down the point. This plant was considered the most dangerous place to work in the United States because there were so many men killed on the job. For years, at least one, maybe two, would be killed down there. Where liquid steel was everywhere, and things just burnt up, and it was normal. Railroad cars ran off the track, and it was considered an everyday event. People would get burnt or hurt, and that was considered, almost normal. But there was always somebody looking out for your back. If you didn't know, there was somebody there to go, hey, don't do that. And it was usually the other guys that were working. And then the people that took me under their wings were the ones that were scared to take me under their wings at first, and that was the black men.
And the Steelworkers National Agreement had a departmental seniority, so that once you were in a department, you would accumulate seniority. And so as time went on, workers had to decide, A, would they be allowed to bid on other jobs? And often supervisors would discriminate against them.
So we were not only discriminated against from our fellow employees, but also from the union too. So we had, it was like a double-edged sword. You didn't know, you had to walk a fine line.
She came in the 70s as a result of what she refers to as a consent decree. A lot of brave workers, first the black workers and then the women, realized that the Civil Rights Act could be their legal weapon in terms of getting plant-wide seniority and the ability to bid on other jobs. And it took 10 years to have the consent decree finally done in 1974. And one of the conditions was that the seniority in the plant now was plant-wide, so that anyone could bid anywhere and take their seniority with them. And so you hear Sharon Pritchard, for example, talking about bidding up into being a crane operator, and that was considered a high-skilled, very, very important job. And so it was a real step up for her, and it was one that was banned or blocked for both blacks and women in the early days. And it led to yet another turmoil. Many of the white steelworkers were unhappy with it. And you find in the 70s that there were men in the plant who really encouraged women to bid up and treated them fairly and treated them with respect. You find other ones who treated them horribly.
And the same men that didn't want me in the department wound up taking up for me the very first time I went out drinking with them. They actually got into a fight in the bar because we were sitting there talking, about work that day and blah, 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 and there was two guys in there that was out of work. And they were bricklayers, and they're going, "You mean to tell me you're the one that got my job?" And I went, "I'm the one that got you. I'm a bricklayer, and I can't work because you're working, blah, blah, blah." Oh, they wanted to cuss me out and all that sort of stuff, and the men just stopped them. They're going, wait a minute. You're not supposed to talk to her like that. She's a lady. And I wanted to get up and hit the guys. It made me so mad, And they're going, "We'll take care of this, Sharon. Don't you just sit there." But no one ever thought the doors would ever be totally shut.
An abrupt and destructive moment in the lives of everyone there, particularly the women, though. Because of the contract, the women were able to get equal pay and were paid well. And their options now are to go to, quote, female jobs, which are working in offices or clerks at stores. And I think the lessons are for the next industrial plant that's about to go down. Do you accept it as a given and a failure that industrialism has gone from the United States? Or do you realize that human factors go into it, political factors go into it, and so the course of history can be changed, and these civilizations can be preserved and expanded? If you had to do it over, would you?
Yes. Yeah. For a single person, for a single mom, there was no way I would have been able to help my children do what they've done today, or help my grandkids, or help my parents the way I've been able to help my family and friends.
All America salutes its women of steel.